And we're live. Finally. Always late.
Nice.
Hey, we like being late. That's what we do. Always fashionably late.
It increases the anticipation.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're live.
Exactly.
It makes people more excited or mad. One of the two. I'm going to go with more excited.
Yeah, more excited. Exactly. Well, welcome everybody. Hope you guys are having a good day. And if you're not having a good day, well, it's okay because we have Alex Sirard with us, and he's gonna make your day a lot better now. So for some people who don't know Alex, we've known Alex for years now. He was a student for a while and turned into a great friend, and now he's a friend and a trainer, and he works with us part time as well. So welcome, Alex. And before we get it going here, can you just explain to people what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, guys. It's been a long time coming since we've had this talk about doing something together like this.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, and it's stuff with the restriction right now. I can't really get to come, I don't have the chance to come see you guys in Calgary, and I got to break in my new gear, so I'm gonna have to take full advantage of that eventually to come see you guys, get some tuning in because I missed the full season myself, and break in the new gear, but. Quickly, what I do is I am a strength coach / sport performance coach, meaning I take the biomechanics seen in sports and break it down and apply it to a gym while still maintaining the strength coach needs and the work that you do with athletes. So my focus is mainly on motion and movement.
Sorry, Alex, just 1 second. Is your audio turned on for the YouTube? Because I can hear us in the background right now.
Shouldn't be. How's that?
It's still playing in the background. Weird.
Yeah, this is weird. I don't know why, because I don't have anything else besides this at the moment. So
here, I'm gonna. Sorry, Alex. Just one. Yeah, weird. Let's see here. Turned on for the YouTube because I can hear. Oh, I think I got it figured out here. Should be all good. Never mind. We're good. We're back. Sorry for cutting you off here.
Awesome. Yeah, sorry. So, yeah, basically, I'm a strength coach. I work with athletes of like multiple sports, but my specialty is sport movement. So, what is it that we see on the ice, and for goalies, especially what we see on the ice, the way we move, because clearly the way we move is entirely different than any other sports you'll come across. And it differs from the players in front of us, so whether it's the defenseman or forward, we move differently. And what I do is I take down our position and I break it down into patterns, and I look at what we do and how can we implement those patterns into the gym. To an extent, we need sports specificity in the gym, but we also need a good foundation and good strength training. So when it comes to physiology, you definitely want the base of strength training, but when it comes to sport training, you also want to add that specificity that you'll find on the ice and try to maximize your performances on ice as well. So that's what I do. I just work with athletes here in Lethbridge and a few across obviously Alberta, and I try to just help everyone achieve the next level, whatever that is for you guys, whether it's to go pro, junior, midget, the triple levels, whatever that is. I just want to work with guys and help them achieve the next level to them.
Has it been different for you with like the whole COVID stuff? Have you been doing more online training, or are you still able to work with athletes one-on-one?
It's been a weird, challenging year. I tried not to do too much online. I'm not a big fan of it because you can give out the best program online. At the end of the day, if you don't move well, the program is only so good. So it's all about that ability to move. And again, there's a lot of good strength coaches out there in the world that can program anything, and really they're just phenomenal at it. But without the proper coaching and your ability to move, again, you're not getting the full efficiency of the program. So motion is everything, especially we know goalie, like if you're not a good mover, it's going to affect your ability to move on the ice, and everything's going to suffer from it. And then that's something with the difference you'll see from guys moving up and not moving is their ability to move. So the more fluid you're going to be, the better you are at moving, the better you are, and that's also going to reduce your chance of injuries and so on. So I don't really like the online stuff. Have been doing some, not as much. We've been fortunate enough that at times COVID has been somewhat quieter, and I have my own gym and basement that has enough to do everything. So I've been doing a lot of private sessions out in my own house or outside during the COVID. So we've been somewhat of a go this entire time, except right now, see like the newest restriction, we're not allowed to do anything. Yeah. And Lethbridge has been somewhat quiet with cases. Just recently, we've been the high risk zone, but for the most part, we haven't been that high. So we were able to do a few more things than other zones might not have been able to do. So overall, it's been good, but definitely been challenging. The worst part has been having to go online at times has not been ideal, just because I personally don't like it. I like the hands-on.
Yeah.
And it's just not the same. Like if I can't see you move, it's tough for me to give you the best out of myself and what I can program. Again, can give you a great program, it doesn't mean it's going to be that good for you, because if you don't do it well, don't move well, you're losing all the true efficiency of it. So it's been challenging.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah, so I guess basically, like, how important is feedback for what you do? Like, you know, when we're on ice, pretty much we give feedback after every single repetition. Do a rep, we take a couple shots, and we come in and talk to you. Like, how do you, or what's the role of feedback in what you do?
It's everything. A lot of it too is the type of coaching. So when you look at education programs and how they educate kids, there's three main factors. And then you can talk about that, obviously, from your background in psychology. But it's not just like.
Pardon me. I'm not the one being interviewed, so that's why I'm asking you. But I'll let you.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it is crucial, and you got to know and understand your athletes. The feedbacks are key in so many different ways. One is athletes, especially at a younger age, don't necessarily understand how well they move. They might feel like it's on, but it's not quite there yet, or they don't have that brain connection to their muscles. So the feedback, it gives them more that intent, mindfulness, that they need to apply the right power, the right connection from the mind to the brain. And so people don't realize your brain is everything into your workout. People think it's just muscle and physical into your body, but it's all coming from your CNS, central nervous system. This is where you need it. So that the feedbacks are crucial. And whether we're just filming and give it back like you guys do on the ice, or just through cues, it's crucial. The other one would be from kinetic. So manipulating the athlete would be another one. It's been a good one. The one thing, and there's been a long debate in strength coaching, is whether or not you can give too many feedbacks. In reality, you can probably argue yes, because kids can be overwhelmed with their own feedbacks to give back. But if you do give out the right thing, and you're you know your athletes, you know what to tell them and how to tell them and how to get them to figure it out, it's great. And that's sometimes the issue is we'll see a lot of guys that you can give them the same feedback over and over, they just won't get it. Then you got to look beyond, okay, what else can I say? How can I show them, make them understand this, and so they can apply it properly? And this is where sometimes the coaching aspect is lost within strength coaches. They just don't know how to deliver a program or deliver an exercise or cues that we might use in the gym. So I think it's a bit of an art, and the feedbacks is just as crucial, because you can say the same thing over and over. So feedbacks are good, but if the athlete doesn't apply it, then it's no longer useful at any point. So there's a fine margin in there where it's on behalf of the coach to deliver the right feedback and how to deliver it too as well, because there's multiple ways of doing it. And then the other one is just purely, make sure you're not overwhelming the athlete, because if you give them too many feedbacks, like I said, a lot, you'll give them 3 pointers to look at, and suddenly they get scrambled because they tend to focus way too much on what they should be doing, and everything else go out the window because they're just too distracted by what you're giving back. So it is good, but you need a healthy balance. And you need to have a certain progression in your feedback as well, because if you try to give too much too quickly, they just get overwhelmed and they lose all the efficiency of their workout.
When we talk about mobility, like what does that mean to you? Because sometimes when we talk about mobility to some people, for them it's just flexibility. It just means, are you flexible? But if you had to describe what mobility is, what would you say?
Well, first of all, mobility is your ability to move in certain range of motion. And that's where it gets, and you're right, a lot of people think mobility, flexibility. You can be the most unflexible person and still be mobile. And that's my thing. Like I am so stiff. My muscles are tight just because of how much demand I put on them through my daily life, with working out, working with athletes constantly, and still practicing and playing games. But I am extremely mobile, which allows me to do the split without full flexibility. And the thing people don't realize is mobility can be improved within one session. Flexibility will take weeks to improve. Mobility can be improved quickly. And flexibility lost a lot quicker than mobility. So that is the nice thing people need to understand. Mobility and flexibility are two different things. Mobility is a lot greater for health and risk injuries than flexibility will be, because if you can be over flexible, which then impairs your ability to generate power and could make a lot of your muscles at risk prototype or just make your joints unstable because your muscles have too much elasticity, which then can lead to sprains and all the ankles. And one common one we see a lot in hockey players, especially goalies, is an ankle sprain, since we don't have as much support in our ankles as like forwards or any players playing in front of us. So those are things that you got to be careful. And when we mean mobility, we don't necessarily need flexibility. And a lot of nice thing with mobility is you can achieve mobility throughout your actual lift. As long as you move through a full range of motion when you're lifting, your mobility is being improved. And mobility comes at your joint. Flexibility comes at your muscle. So there's the difference between the two. Obviously, to achieve a certain amount of mobility, you do need a decent amount of flexibility, but you can get away with all mobility without the full flexibility.
So in layman's term, would you say that, let's say flexibility would be you being able to touch your toes, but mobility is you being able to go all the way down on your squat, basically?
Yes, exactly. That's a good one. And if you actually look at power lifters, like the big lifters in the gym, most of them don't even spending time stretching, but they are extremely mobile. That's because they always work through a full range of motion, which allows them to be mobile through their training. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing we do when we start an off-season training. Like the first, because obviously going back quickly, hockey players, goalies, we don't need that much range of motion sometimes when we lift because it doesn't apply. Like if you're going to do a backside push, despite being in this somewhat deep position, you're not, if you look at knee angle and your shin angle is great, but your knee angle to your thigh is not that great. So you need to teach your body to learn to maximize power efficiency in that position. So a deep squat is honestly one thing that you need throughout your entire off season. So we have a time where we need that. We'll implement a lot more of that early on in the off season, but coming down into the in season, and later in the off season, we don't implement as much mobility within the actual lift. We'll implement exercises for mobility, but when that, so in this case, yes, like you said, like the squat pattern, the motion pattern is where you're going to increase a lot of mobility, and then you're going to be able to eventually just build mobility through anything else you're going to do. The one thing you guys got to be aware of is that if your muscles are imbalanced, your mobility could be affected, and that's something we see a lot in the shoulders. Especially in male athletes, where they tend to be a lot stronger in the front, so their chest tends to be a lot stronger in their back, and they have that massive imbalance from the front to back, which leads to a lot of shoulder injuries. And goaltenders, especially on the glove side, are at risk for shoulder impingement due to the fact that their chest is overworked. And if you look at a good structure in their hands, they naturally have a forward-leaning hand driving forward, which emphasize more the needs of a proper rotator cuff, rhomboids, and so on the back. So if those muscles aren't strong enough, then the impingement will start building up because they have irritation in the joint. So those are all things to keep in mind when we talk about mobility. There's more than just the stretching. There's more than really the joint itself. There's also the balance of the muscles that is required. And hockey players are known for the imbalance in their hips, which then affect your performances and mobility. So if your goalies are immobile, then you got to look how imbalanced are you in your hips from front to back, and most likely you're TFL dominant and you're not utilizing the right muscles when you push.
I see. It's kind of like when you're talking about basically paying attention to the way that goalies or any sport, any athlete moves, and then you set up their workout programs based on it. So for goalies, you'd be focusing a lot on the shoulder rotations. Is there anything else that you would look at that goalies are normally weak at?
Actually, yes, there's a lot of stuff. So one of the biggest goalies tend to not notice how weak we are at is our actual core. People think they're strong because they have abs, but it doesn't mean your core is strong. And like you guys notice as much as me, there's so much rotational aspect in goaltending these days. If you move well, you're good at rotating. But if you have a weak core, your ability to change in direction quickly will not be as efficient. Your ability to maintain an upright position, being strong, whether it's on your feet or on your knees, it's not going to be there. So that's one big one that we need to improve. Whether it's an isometric or just a rotational aspect is crucial. The other one is a lot of us coming out of season have TFL dominance. So we see like our glute mid, which is our main pusher when it comes to going to lateral play, or just lateral pushes, is definitely underworked and taken over. So we lack that proper coordination from the front to back. So those are things we look at. That's the same thing we see from skaters, to be honest, but goalies definitely need a lot more because we really push side to side, whereas forwards are more of an angled. So that it changes the demands slightly. Those are things. And then another thing people would never think to look at, but is overhead shoulder stability for goaltenders. People think, oh, wait, we don't need, like, they don't lift their hands. But like in reality, every time you're down in the butterfly, your hands are reaching up. So that means your overhead position is a bit more crucial, and you see a lot of guys with improper scapular motion, and that drives, so they dump their shoulder forward, which then emphasizes the demand on the shoulder and the proper stability. Another example you'll see a lot of guys too is like if you say there's a rebound, you go with the cradle, the rebound in front of you, and you have to reach down, lean forward. If someone's were to fall on top of your shoulder, is your shoulder would be able to maintain that pressure from the player falling on top of you? If no, then you're going to be at risk for any type of injuries or shoulder infection down the road. So the overhead motion is an overlooked aspect in goaltending that is so crucial, and it's not uncommon now that you'll see guys in college and a little older feeling or having pain in their shoulders just because the fact that they aren't able to properly set their shoulder blade in place while they're moving, and they tend to have a lot of weaknesses from front to back.
That's interesting.
You just described my body. Impingement over my head, TFL pain. I actually went to see my athletic therapist today. You described exactly what I heard back about 2 hours ago.
Until then, I'll say being willing myself, I can understand because I feel it, or I used to feel it more so now than ever. The other thing is just like you see patterns. It's no different than anybody else. You see pattern repeating itself over and over, and you sit on the ice too. We repeat the same patterns on the ice all the time. So for us, we need to address those off. So I mean like strength coaches, we need to address those in off season. And that's one thing, kind of like a pet peeve of mine is we'll spend a full off season training guys, fixing them, getting them ready for the season, and then we won't see them for what the length of the season. We'll see them maybe once a week, or like they'll go off to camp, and because they're so focused on camp and they're so afraid to being sore from training, which is not the case, they won't come back to us later on, and they come back to us like, hey, I'm so sore, I'm banged up, I'm stiff, I'm this. And they don't realize, well, dude, like we spent a full summer fixing you, and then you just took off for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and you haven't seen me. You guess what? You just fed back into those imbalances, and you constantly. And that's the challenge people don't realize is like if you fear going to the gym because you're going to be sore, then you're mistaken. Maybe you don't have the right trainer, because if you have the right staff to support you, you will not be sore. They will make sure that rather than making you sore, your adaptation keep progressing, and you're going to feel that much better because they will improve mobility. They'll make sure that you stay somewhat more balanced, so that all the hard work you put in over the summer will be maintained over this offseason, if not even improved on, rather than actually being lost and destroyed. And now coming off the season and being sore and banged up because you haven't done anything. So yes, the season takes a toll on you, but one of the biggest toll that takes on is the constant repetition of the same pattern constantly. So if I'm always doing the same thing, going down to butterfly and backside pushing everywhere, guess what? My internal hip rotation is increased by an insane amount because of the amount of reps we're doing. Now my TFLs are constantly dominating. So my glutes are no longer efficient. So now I have sore hips, maybe sore lower back, my adductors, my groins are sore as well, or stiff. So those are things that are affected that by the repetition that we do on the ice, and that those are the things that we need to address off ice. And stretching will only do so much. You need to address them by working and loading the right muscles that are not as worked while you're in season.
Do you think that the people just going to the gym to get sore, do you think that's part of the culture of just going hard at nothing all the time? Like the idea that, 100% effort is always required, but instead of thinking about it as 100% effort towards details, it's 100% effort toward just getting tired?
Absolutely. I see it constantly. When, especially with the younger athletes, you see it where guys don't, when it's like more, you don't feel like you're working out, they don't like that. They don't tend to apply themselves like, hey, this is not a workout, I'm just moving through to move. No, there's a purpose behind it. So the intent has been more grateful and crucial at that point. Whereas if you see a lot of guys, like if you're not lifting 400 pounds on their back because they're back squatting, then it's not beneficial. That's not true. There's so much you can do in the gym. Yes, loading is crucial as well. But there's so much more that you need to apply when you go to the gym. The other thing too is the amount of frequency you'll see. So the less time you spend in the gym. So let's say the average, I'll take midget AAA for example, the average AAA team, not counting academies, will spend maybe 1 to 2 sessions a week in the gym. The problem with that is, let's say you do a really hard workout on Monday, for example, that's the first lift you've had in probably, let's say your second lift is Wednesday, and almost like little less than a week. So your recovery has been great, but your adaptation has actually decreased. So the more adaptation decrease, the greater the stimulus will be when you go back to the gym. And that's what causes soreness. So the more frequent you're going to be in the gym, and it doesn't have to be a full hour. It could just be a half hour. It doesn't have to be a full workout. It could be super light. There's so many things that can be implemented in season, whether it's a power output, a velocity output, a strength, hypertrophy. There's so many things that we should be addressing in season. So the lesser amount of frequency you'll get, the most likely you're going to be sore because your adaptation has decreased and your stimuli are a lot lower. So when you go back, your body is like working out the first time again. And it only takes 7 days to lose everything. It takes 7 days to create hypertrophy, which your muscles are losing size. So if you're only in the gym once every 7 days, guess what? It's always like you're starting fresh. So you're going to be sore. And that's what guys fear and says like, oh, if I'm sore, I'm not going to play well. Well, guess what? The more you're going to work out, the more adaptation you're going to have, the greater you're going to play, the less soreness you're going to build over time. And that's how you're going to play at your best. That's one big advantage with colleges is that they get to train 3 to 4 times a week. Some colleges that uses the microdosing system will probably work out 6 times a week. And that's what I do with a lot of my athletes. We'll work out up to 6 times. We'll only work out for half an hour, but we get that stimulation every single day that allows us to have a better body, better adaptation, which allows us to keep on improving and reduces the chance of soreness down the road. So the guys are getting better, less injuries, and they're getting more stimulus out of it.
So when it comes out to
something that I was just going to say something we chatted before is like a more modern definition of hard work. Nick mentioned sort of the old school culture that basically just defines hard work as getting tired. One of the things that I find, and we talked about the language that we use, whenever you use the term working hard, people's perception of it automatically changes into that 100% mindset. So like the way we talked about changing the definition of hard work, how we use it is more like 100% attention, like being really effortful and mindful about what you're doing so that your hard work is strictly applying your attention to the thing that you're doing rather than just doing it as fast and as hard as possible. And it sounds like that's something that you've thought a lot about as well. It's just interesting to point out because we've had that conversation many times.
That intent and mindfulness is so crucial in the gym because if you don't have that intent and mindful, that brain connection to your muscle won't be created. So at this point, you're just lifting to lift. There's no you're working out. There's a difference between working out and training. What do you want to do? Do you want to work out? Or you want to train? If you're an athlete, you want to train. So you got to be so mindful, so driven, so like dialed in when you're in the gym. And it doesn't matter if you're in the gym, you're at home doing your homework on a video you're watching from your game, or if you're on the ice, you got to be dialed in. You cannot just go half-fasting it or not be dialed in. And yes, I understand like life hits everybody differently. You might be preoccupied with something else. You got to learn to dissociate all that, leave it outside. And I know it's easier to say than done, but when you come in around environment, you got to be dialed in and do your thing. If you're mindful and your intent is there, guess what? Your workout's going to be that much greater. And that's the thing people don't realize, but you go in the gym, you might be by yourself, might have a few other guys. There may not be any goalies, but in reality, there's tons of other goalies across the world doing the exact same thing as you. The guys who are going to get the most out of it, it's not whoever's going to sweat the most at the end of the day. It's whoever's going to have the most intent into his workout. It's going to be the most mindful about what they're doing. Like you can improve your power output by lifting 30% of what your 1 RM would be by just being laser focused into your exercise. By doing so, you're going to recruit more fiber into your muscles. Your muscles are going to trigger properly, and you're going to actually move that much more efficiently down the road. So you don't necessarily need to lift heavy and sweat and be out of breath every time. You just have to be focused on what you're doing. The more focused you're going to be, the better your workout is going to be.
Yeah, and it's a skill too. Like when you mentioned there be whatever going on in your life, life happens. There are many distractors, many things that can take your attention away. But being able to block those distractors to be intentful and be mindful about exactly what you're doing at that moment, that's a skill that can be trained the same way. You're talking about off-ice skills, we talk about on-ice skills. And that kind of leads into a question I wanted to ask you from my background of sports cycling. How do you incorporate that idea of blocking distractions and being mindful? Do you have any skills that you teach or that you work with, you train your athletes with?
Yes. So I've been fortunate. The athletes that I have, for the most part, have been with me for 3+ years. So I know them real well. I know them on a personal base as well. So I know how, like, I can see them and I can tell if they're in or not. It's weird, but it's like playing mental games with them. That's what it comes down to. I think that comes down to coaching, and a lot of good strikers will talk about that. It's more than you just talking to them. It's finding a way to get them triggered and in the right place. I don't have your extended. You have, Benny, but I know my minor is in sports psychology as well. And one of the biggest things is feel like finding a way to get them triggered. And like I said, I just know that my athletes well enough, and there's ways to play games on them, which they're not even aware of, and allows me to get them laser focused in the zone. The biggest one we've been implementing a lot more is grouping them with the right athlete, in the right mindset. Minimizing their phone use is one. Despite my guys are allowed to use their phone because the program is on their phone. And they need to track their rest time, recovery time between set and between reps and sets and so on, depends on what we're doing. Those are things, but the other one is just like getting to know your athletes. For me, that's number one. I know my athletes so well. I can just tell, hey, like so and so, I can tell right now you're not focused. Regroup, take a step back. Whatever you need to do, get in the zone because you're not there right now, and you're just like pissing away everything. So those are things. I think it's just coming down to knowing your athlete. It's obviously tough when you get a new guy in to implement all that type of stuff, but it doesn't take long to know your athletes. As long as and that's another thing too with strikers. A lot of them try to have that drill sergeant type of thing, like that hard grip on them. It doesn't work. Not in my opinion. In my opinion, if you get to be one of them, show they want them, get to know them, talk to them, you'll get so much more out of them. They'll buy in, and that's one. If you get by them, they'll be more focused. And the second thing, you'll know how to push them, but you'll know if they're off too. And there's days, regardless of how much you get them going, they're not in it. Every kid's going to go through that. Their hormone changes, that changes everything. So you just got to find a way to get them dialed in, and it comes down to coaches. I think it's more the coaches than the strategy you can put in place. Get to know your athletes is number one.
No, I like that, man. It's a weird thing, but I think it's like almost. Do you find there's a difference in the mentality when it comes down to training properly, when it comes down to mobility with the younger age groups versus the older age group? Sometimes I feel like the older the athletes are, the more old school mentality they have, and the younger they are, they don't know any better. So if you start training them properly, they just accept it much faster, right? They accept the idea of not having to work hard. Do you find that at all?
A little bit. It depends on their background, really. I've had some guys. What could it be like? So the new guys, they're not been exposed. So if I get to have them right away earlier on, I can just mold them into what they need to be, which is a lot easier. And I've had athletes like that. I've had athletes crossing over from another trainer, another group of training, and for some of them just knew the importance. They had good training. Some of them never had good training. So for them, buying them was a little tougher at first. But once they see the benefits, and the one nice thing is we are so close as a group at Evo, and that's the community is great. So once they bought in, or they see the guys doing it, and they see the intent and everything they're putting in, usually they tend to flow a little better. But yes, I've had some resistance at first, just because I've always done this way. It's like, yeah, but that's how things were going there, and I'm different. I'm also a lot younger, so I'm the new. I'm making like the new era of strength coaches. We're a lot more progressive than most, and you're seeing a shift in that too in the NCAA D1. Like a lot of university are changing. Strength coaches are getting hired newer or younger guys that have that progressive mentality. And then usually athletes will come with me if that's what they want. And there's times when people don't come because they just don't know. And if they do know how progressive I am, they just don't want to. Because you're right, some guys refuse to change because now they did it for so long and it works. But a lot of guys, it's the opposite. Now they're starting to learn, oh, wow, I don't have to be this hurt every year. There's ways I can change that. And this is where like someone like myself who's really progressive will come in handy. And I have this one pro athlete right now. He plays hockey in overseas. And for years he was doing certain type of trainings, which was the old school mentality of trainings, all lift heavy, push hard. And then over the past years we worked together, he's changed his philosophy, and it's a lot more focused on him. Like he's in his 30s, mid 30s almost. So he's on the back end of his career, and now it's like, okay, how can I take care of my body better? How can I move better? How can I maintain my power output despite the H factor where he's losing speed and power? How can he slow down the curve and not necessarily have to squat 400 pounds to produce a lot of force, but still maintain a high velocity rate? And that's something people don't necessarily realize. You don't necessarily have to lift heavy all the time to be at your best. But it comes with education, I think, DD, on that one. Like, a lot of it is people don't realize what we can provide and what that progression and progressive type of training can come into hand. So once these guys are educated, they start understanding, and it's on us strength coaches to tell them why you're doing this. This is why you're doing this, and implement the intent in the training into them so they understand. That's number one. And that's why I like working with college athletes. It's weird, but college athletes are the one who ask the most questions. They always ask you why. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And I love that because it gives me the chance to express why, and the reasoning behind it gives them an intent. So they know how to be mindful towards certain aspect. They know what to look for, but also give them the chance to buy it, and they get it. So everything is science backed. And if it wasn't, then I'll say it would make no sense, and that's why people wouldn't buy it. But I have the science, the data, and the knowledge to share with the guys, and that get them to buy in at first. But you're right, there's always going to be the old guys are going to kind of fight back and hesitate just because it's new. And a lot of people fear new, which is too bad because if you don't evolve, you'll just stay where you are. And you'll never become the best you can be. And just like anything else, everything evolves. Even the game of hockey has changed so much over the past few years, and it's going to keep on changing. So your training has to do the same. And if you look at NHL teams right now, they don't want the big, strong guys anymore. They want the guys who's going to be able to withstand a full season, not get hurt, because when you're injured, you cost a lot of money to that team. Your team is not as good. You lose your chance of really shining, and the team's losing games now. So they don't want that anymore. They don't want the big guys going to be hurt all the time or just going to be slow. It's all about the speed of the game. So they want guys that are coming in shape, fast, agile, and are going to be able to play a full 82 season plus playoffs after that.
Do you find that some players who get injured very often, that are prone to injury, is it often due to the player themselves just being prone to injuries as a whole, or is it a lot of times a disparity in their training?
It could be a mix. It could be one or the other two. So a lot of times, actually, I won't say a lot of times. It would have to see on the players. Some players just don't tend to take care of themselves. So they will, and I still see it this day. And no matter how much or how many times I'm going to tell them, they might still do it. No, they're going to spend all the time in the world, and they're going to be super on. They're going to be great in their training, great on their on ice stuff, but come off the ice, get out of the gym, then they don't do anything good for them. They don't sleep well enough. So they don't prioritize sleep. They don't prioritize their food intake, their hydration. So those are things that will affect their ability to be 100%. So that's one. The other one, and that's the most common one probably if I look back, I would say, is improper training. So the kids are great. They take care. And that was my case, to be honest with you guys. Growing up, that was my case. I had the right mindset. I was doing everything the right way to be in great shape. And I had a great trainer. I like what we did, but he was a trainer. He wasn't a strength coach or a sports performance coach. So nothing that we did was well executed. And all we did is we did more of everything, worked extremely hard, but we also started to crumble because we had no balance in our training. We had no mobility assessment and no mobility work. So those are things. So I would say now, and especially in leverage, I see a lot is poor training or lack of training, because that's also, I think people don't realize, but if you don't train, and that's my biggest fear right now with COVID and this current 2 week suspension, is that a lot of our guys were underway on their training. They're doing great. They're being going on for weeks to months for some. And now suddenly you take a full 2 weeks off, and then you expect to go back to where you were. You're not going to be. 14 days, if you haven't moved much, done much, you can't go back to where you be. You're going to have to take a big step back to realign yourself, and that's one of the things, the acute on the stress and the intensity. But it ran into, it could be either one. So you got to look at yourself. If you're an athlete, you got to look at yourself. Okay, how's my training? Is it good? If you're not, you look at your strength coach. Does he have? If it is a strength coach, because there's a difference between a personal trainer and a strength coach, and there's a world difference. Trainers, a lot of them just have a weekend certification.
Yeah.
Strength coaches went to school, but again, not because you went to school unless you're good. So you can look at the credential, look at their background, look at what they've done, And look at the rate. Like, if you're a strength coach as well, but every one of his athletes are like, no, X amount of his athletes get hurt every year, maybe there's some questions you should raise from there. But again, you can't just point at strength, but do your work, do your homework, do your study, look at your background. Do you have the right coach for you? And the other one is your problem good? And it's tough because if you don't know, if you're not a kinesiologist, you obviously you just won't know. So do your study, look around, ask questions, reach out. There's a lot of guys like myself that are more than likely to look over some of your stuff, and we'll give you our honest feedback. Say, hey, like this might not be right for you. The other one is like, if you're not sure, to get assessed. Some strength coaches are not certified, so they can assess you. But if they have their FMS like I do, they can assess your ability to move. That will give us an idea if you're at risk for injuries or not. Go work with a good physiotherapist. Those guys are real. So I know the guys at Orca, at Edge, and Calgary are phenomenal. So if you really can get assessed by those guys. So those are things you want to look at, see where you're at for that type of stuff. And the other one, you gotta look at yourself. Okay, then now, if you have a good trainer, good strength coach, great, that's fantastic. If you're putting the right time to that, but what are you doing outside the gym, outside the ring? Are you sleeping enough? Are you going to bed at early, or are you staying late at night? Are you eating junk food all the time? Are you consuming enough calories, enough protein? Those are all things that you got to look at. Those are all factors that will play in. So at the end of the day, it's a holistic approach. It's not just one thing, but one thing can dominate the other one for sure.
I was going to ask you about that actually when it comes down to sleep and nutrition, but let's go with sleep first. For one, like how many hours of sleep should athletes get, and does it depend on their age, and also does the time at which they go to sleep matter as well?
So both questions. So the first one, the time. There's been a lot of debate. But if you look at the Canadian Institute in Sport for Sleep, right now they suggest 10 hours of sleep for a teenage athlete. So we're going to talk about like that midget age, maybe down midget, even some junior, because technically you, as a male athlete, you can grow to a 24. So that growth factor turns out even more. So 10 hours is what they recommend for most athletes, and that even goes to the pro levels. Like, I know it's a lot of time in bed, but that's one thing they do recommend is it's sleeping. And even now, study shows that teenage, like high school athletes, are not getting enough sleeps, and they're also getting up too early, which is a weird thing. But schools and those guys are not they're not designed to be up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. They should be sleeping a lot longer in the morning. So 10 hours of sleep. Pardon me, I know it's hard to get for a lot of people, but that's what they should be aiming for. At least 10 hours in bed will help. Even it's highly recommended to have a nap. Even just a half-hour nap is beneficial for those athletes in terms of recovery. And people have to understand too, you don't recover when you're awake. You adapt. Mm-hmm. You only recover when you're sleeping. So if you want your body to recover, to get the full adaptation, the full benefits of all your training you do, you need to sleep. So people need to understand that sleeping is crucial. And depends on your energy expenditure, your calorie intake, your sleep might be even more crucial than you think. So without proper tracking and stuff, say the Whoop band right now is one of the best in terms of that. It really has a nice coach attached to it, which gives you all the insight that you need. Of all the technologies, the best one I found so far.
And sorry,
but rule of thumb is for Whoop, so WHOOP. And actually, shout out to Zach Fucali, because he's the one who sent me on that, and my buddy Brandon Stepper here, Stepchuk, two goalies as well. Kind of want to introduce me to the band, and we it's been great to track that, and that's one thing the band just tracked the recovery for you. So if guys are looking for that, you can look at that technology. But if you don't want technology, like rule of thumb for an athlete is 10 at least hours a night, especially like with the amount of things that most guys do. Like, think about it, if you're skating 5 times a week and you're working out 5 times a week, and then you do extra work, especially if you're still going to school, you're using so much of your time, energy, you need to recover. Adapting is only so good. You need some recovery in there, so you need to sleep. And to answer your second question, time. So it's tough because everybody has a circadian rhythm that is naturally affecting your body. So for a lot of guys, like especially teenage years, the wanting to stay up late, not looking at the social aspect, it's normal. Male athletes, just high school athletes in general, their circadian rhythm is shifted backward a bit more than, say, someone myself was in like early 30s. So for those guys, wanting to stay up late and sleep longer is entirely normal. But yes, the golden hour type of rule, like sleep more before midnight, it is a thing. You'll get better quality sleep earlier on. But naturally, like I said, your body will follow the natural sunlight outside, and based on your age, your circadian rhythm will change. And there's a lot of good sleep doctors out there that we'll talk about. And there's different types. You can be an owl, you can be a bear. There's so many different types of circadian rhythm that you might be. So do some studies, find out where you are. They'll use a better idea of where you should line up your sleep. I know for me, after all the studies and everything that I've read and did the data, at best ideal is 11-8 for me at my age. That's kind of what I need for sleep. So it gives me about 9 hours, and that's a good place to look at for some guys. It might be midnight to 10 for those kids. I know it's tough with school, so you might have to shift those 2 hours earlier on, so go to bed at 10 to get up at 8 or whatever you need. But yes, time is crucial as long as it matches your circadian rhythm.
That's super
how important is it to? Oh, sorry. I was going to say, how important is it to prepare to go to sleep? Like, the reason I ask is with the amount of blue light. You mentioned with sun, our circadian rhythms are in tune with the sun, but we're on screens that are emitting the same kind of blue light all the time. So, like, in order to go to bed at 11, we should actually try to prepare to go to bed a little bit earlier. So, how important is that?
It's crucial. It's everything. And then even the data shows it now. If you look at all the studies, sleep data, the more prepared you are going to bed, the better you're going to be. One fascinating fact, I can't remember the study where it came from, but wearing blue light glasses prior to going to bed for 2 hours before going to bed will increase your melatonin levels by 58%, which is massive.
That's huge.
Exactly. So I wear mine always 2 hours before. Obviously, sometimes if I'm working, it's always easy to have because I don't have them with me, but I always try to aim for 2 hours before. That way I know when I'm going to, and I could be a bit of a placebo with bias because I know it's steady, but I feel it, like I'll be winding down a lot better. And there's other things such as, like, I know nobody wants to read, but reading helps greatly too. And even like when I'll use my Whoop again, there's a journal you have to fill out in the morning when they're tracking your sleep. And those are questions they ask you, like your screen time prior to going to bed, whether it's your phone, your laptop, TV, whatever, whether or not you're wearing blue light glasses, if you read the night before, because reading that will help. So if you create a routine, the better, because your body naturally knows that it's time to go to bed. Same thing we do for games. Like a lot of guys talk about routine before going on the ice, and that can be applied for practice as well. If you do the same thing over and over, your body just naturally knows, hey, this routine equals this amount of focus I'm needed, or this is what is coming next. So it prepares you. So whether you're playing a game, you're going to practice, going to workout, or you're going to bed, you should have a routine to help you out. The more consistent you're going to be with everything, the better your game's going to be. And that's what we want, Dan. It's want to reach the next level, you got to be better. And that might just be 1%, but 1% every day adds up. And it's like that compound idea. It adds up to more every time. And 1% is the difference between you making triple or double or you beating that guy next to you for the junior spot. So those are all things that go a long way. And those are all studies and things I wish I would have found out when I was a junior. Like, I tried to do everything the right way, but now I'm looking back, I missed a lot of things. And guys these days are fortunate because there's so many studies, so many data out there that you can find. But you can reach out to somewhat expert pros like myself that can just share that with you and help you improve on your game.
When it comes to what you do, Alex, do you prefer to read books to get more knowledge, or do you prefer to read studies?
It's a bit of both. Books I'm a big nerd. I'll be honest with you. I'm a nerd. I have so many books and I love reading books. But the problem is that in my spectrum, books oftentimes are just they're a bunch of studies crammed into one, and some books are just not supported by studies, so you got to be careful. And the books is all theory based, where studies have the data to push it back. So you gotta have a nice mixture of two. I know there's some great strength coaches that don't look at books at all. They purely read studies, because studies are a lot shorter to read. Like, it's maybe anywhere from 1 to 20 pages, where some of the books I'll read have 500 plus pages. So you'll probably spend a month on that book, where you can read 7 studies easy over 7 days. It all depends. But now with how things are, you have some great podcasts out there as well that will help. And obviously, if you don't have a kinesiology background, sometimes listening to those can be dry and tough to understand because you don't necessarily have the theory behind it. But there's also some great stuff on YouTube now. So learning, you could pretty much get a full university degree online these days with just YouTube and podcasts. There's so much great content out there. But personally, I'm more of a book person, but I do both. Just because it's needed to know the science base. The only problem is that sometimes the articles, the research articles are really dry, can be really dry. And it's just a lot of numbers. But I definitely like doing both, but more so towards books.
Fair enough. When it comes down to nutrition, are there any supplements that you believe actually give an advantage to the athletes, and are there some supplements that you think are purely hype and they don't work at all, or actually are detrimental?
Yeah, no, I would say detrimental. Supplements will help you, but people have to understand supplements are only like a few percentage on what you do. Your calorie intake should be coming from your food. If you can't eat enough because you're so busy and it's not always easy and parents are cooking for you, then definitely you can supplement and add some more. And you get to a point it's kind of almost needed. Supplements for me, ones I recommend the most. Well, number one for any athletes is creatine. Creatine, and I hate because there's so many bad myths out there. So many people, creatine is the safest supplements and the most beneficial ones you'll find by everything. If you look, and it's the most studied, right there alone, you know that the facts are there, and the facts all showing there's nothing like like creatine. So that's the number one. And whether it's Dr. Bob's, who's the lead doctor for Team Canada basketball, he's well renowned in Canada and across the world. He will say it's creatine. If you look at any leading in the industry, will say creatine is number one in terms of supplementation. That's my number one. My number two for me will be vitamin D, especially in Canada where we lose so much sun exposure. So if you can implement your vitamin D, your immune system will be better, your energy output will be better, and you'll just feel overall better. Your health will improve. And it's baffling. They did a study with Brazil soccer players, and we're like, Brazils have suns year round, and it's beautiful. And what they found is with pro soccer players in Brazil don't get enough sun exposure because a lot of the training is taking place inside. So even in the summer, if you work inside, you're an athlete, you work inside, you work out inside, you skate inside, you're not that exposed to sun, so you need that extra vitamin D. But us in Canada, obviously in winter, we need that vitamin D to keep our immune system high, our mental health high and healthy. We need that vitamin D. And then the other one you can add on there, it would be whey protein. Also, there's other vitamins. There's tons you can add, but whey protein for a lot of those younger athletes that probably don't consume enough protein or not enough calories. Another study was done on soccer players in the UK for youth soccer players, high school age, 15 to 18. And their calorie consumptions needed to be able to play at their best was anywhere from 3,000 and 4,000 calories. Most athletes don't even get that. And hockey requires even more calorie intake than soccer players because of our gear, the level of energy expenditure through the training, the practices, and the games. Our calorie intake should be almost at 4,000 calories for those guys as they're growing and everything going on. So protein becomes a little handy because it's easier to consume. It's a liquid calorie, especially if you use a mass gainer. But be aware, mass gainers sometimes are filled with fillers, which are really bad for you. So make sure you have a clean one if athletes decide to consume mass gainers. But mass gainers are definitely easier to get some calories in you if you don't eat enough as it is. And most of us just don't eat enough. Or most athletes, don't eat enough as it is. So get those calories in if you want to maximize and be able to recover and adapt.
What's the most overused but necessary supplement that you see?
Probably pre-workouts and BCAAs. Too many athletes will try to use pre-workouts to kind of cancel all the fatigue that they've built because they don't sleep enough. They don't prioritize sleep, so they'll focus more on the pre-workouts. They'll have 1 to 2 scoops and just not sleep well enough. So pre-workout is definitely one I would say. And it's a vicious cycle too. If you take a pre-workout, especially if you take it late, like caffeine as a life length of 6 hours. So if you take a pre-workout because your workout's at 8 o'clock at night, 6 hours later, that's when the feeling of the caffeine will actually finally wear off. You might not feel in your body, but your brain's still wired from the caffeine. So now you're not sleeping well. So guess what? The next day you'll need more caffeine, and it keeps being like that. So I would say probably like the most overused that one would be your pre-workout. Sometimes guys would be a bit more careful of it. The other one would be BCAAs. It's a big one where it has its advantage. It tastes good, which is great, but it's not something that necessarily needed. But if the guys want, by no means, like don't stop taking it. But if you want to save some money, don't necessarily take your BCAAs or glutamine. Glutamine, it's a branch amino acid. It's only so good. It's not going to do that much. So, and there's not as much results on data, but it's been shown it's not as beneficial as people may think. So there's so many things that people are going to go and buy more, and so that's great. You're better off getting just a multivitamin supplement and focus on that. And the other one too, I totally forgot to mention that, if you don't consume enough fruits and vegetables, or your quality of food is not good, especially with all the processed food you find these days, maybe look at getting some greens in supplementation. It's easy to take now than more than ever. Like there's tons of good flavors you can get, and it will help you get all those minerals and vitamins that you don't necessarily get from your food, because we all know food is so processed these days, and not everybody can afford to buy organic and directly from the farm. So if you don't have the chance, so to minimize the effect of the bad food and the lack of minerals and vitamin intake, a green supplement would be a good one to add to your diet.
When it comes down to creatine, what kind of creatine? Because there's monohydrate, there's so many different types of creatine. So which one is most efficient, or does it even matter?
It does matter actually. One, your body will respond differently, but the best right now and the most studied of all is the monohydrated one, and it is proven to be the best out there. That, and another one you can look at, a few brands are doing well for that. It's looking just a pure creatine. So if you know monohydrate doesn't do so well with me, you just look at just a pure creatine. PVL does really well, 6 stars as well. I believe BioSteel does extremely well as well with that. So those are the things you might want to look at, is either pure or monohydrate are the best two to go. But in terms of study, monohydrate is the most studied one out there.
And is there a certain amount of creatine that people should take per day, or does it depend on your weight or your age or anything like that?
It all depends on a few other factors in reality. Depends on where you are in your training. The other thing too is people understand that creatine is being produced in your body naturally. So if you tend to take too much of it and don't necessarily wave, your natural ability to produce it will reduce, because your body will just account for everything that comes in. So what I tell my athletes, always wave it out, but waving out doesn't mean you necessarily need to go to zero. You can just improve on it. And the nice thing with creatine is if you take too much, guess what? You're just going to pee in it. You're not going to actually keep it in. It's not going to cause any side effect or anything. Too much of it is not a bad thing, because you're not going to keep it in. You're just going to eliminate it through your pee. So it's not a problem. And there's studies were done on its ability. So anywhere from 5 to 10 gram a day is really good. If you're going to be in a phase where you're really in high demand, creatine boosts your recovery and adaptation. So if you know you're getting a little tired, maybe increase your calorie intake because your body's not recovering as well. Then you also got to look at whether or not you're sleeping well. But that's another thing that can help, is creatine will speed up your recovery. Creatine will also bring in more nutrients to your muscles. So while you're lifting, if you're in a power phase, you want to build more power, or in the strength phase, creatine will actually help you generate more power and force while lifting. So in that case, you may want to take more as well, or your timing becomes an issue. So if you're doing power and strength, maybe take more before your lift, so you have more during the workout. So maybe have some during the workout as well. Whereas if you're doing a size or hypertrophy strength or a hypertrophy phase, then the recovery is more crucial. So you might want to have more. So like at times, so the timing of the creatine now becomes in question as well. And another study was shown on concussions. And it showed that the 7 days following your concussion, if you increase your creatine intake by 20 grams, which the average is 5 to 10 grams daily. So if you double that to 20 grams a day, your baseline recovery from your concussion will actually improve quicker. So you'll be back to baseline quicker. And for some studies, they even found that some athletes were doing better than their previous baseline prior to that concussion. So creatine is so beneficial in so many ways, and it even helps with the brain. So for those guys that come back from a concussion, then creatine is in there. But in terms of intake, I would say if you take 5 grams every day, you're getting something. Just fluctuate through and look at your workout too. Like if you're gonna go for a big power workout, maybe take 10 before, or at least 5. And if you know you're in a part of your training where it is so demanding, you're so depleted from it because the workouts are that intense, maybe increase to 15, 20 on that day just to help you recover quicker so you can bounce back quicker, especially if you're going to have a skate the next day and another workout, which most hockey players will have, then increase a bit on your take. But the best what I tell everybody is wave it through on a daily basis. Go according to what you have. I know if I have just a mobility day, I don't need any. I'm not going to waste my time unless I'm still feeling depleted from the day before. Fine, I'm going to take maybe 5. But if not, I'm not going to take any. I don't need to. But if I know I have a day where maybe not, I have a big power day and then I might have a skate like that day, I might take 2, 3 scoops, which is about 5 gram scoops. I'll get to 15 grams in that day. So it's about waving it through the daily basis. I know a lot of people will wave it with seasons or so. I don't so many athletes, and I see it here in Leverage, they'll take creatine only in the off season. And because they're afraid of water redemption. It's like water redemption is not a bad thing. Okay, it's not the end of the world. Even if you do have redemption, it's okay. You're not going to be dehydrated. Creatine does not dehydrate you. That's one of the biggest fear. Like you don't get dehydrated because of creatine. Caffeine will dehydrate you, not creatine. Creatine is completely fine. So if you take your creatine, you're good. Take it year round. Don't just limit it to the in season, the off season. Keep it in season as well. It's so beneficial for athletes. To take, and that's the number one someone everybody should actually have in their house, and it's fairly cheap too. No, for like 30 to 40 servings, it could be like anywhere from $15 to $25, which is super affordable. Whereas you look at BCAAs is anywhere from 30 to 50, and then so on. So cheap, easy to get supplement, and it's highly efficient.
So basically, switch out your pre-workout and just move over to creatine instead.
A lot of athletes will make their own, so they'll get like the vitamin B12 and B6 with their creatine, and they'll add whatever else they need. And if you want a little bit of a boost, check that. But also, if that's what you want, say you want creatine and you want those extra stimulant that gives you that pump feeling and that fast blood circulation and dilating of your blood vessels. There's some workouts with no stimulant that has no caffeine, no ginseng, and no green tea extracts. So those are the things you can look at, which won't affect your sleep, but will give you the exact same benefits that a pre-workout will give you in terms of efficiency in the gym. The one thing people have sort of said is like caffeine has one great effect on the body, and it does minimizes the pain. So it increases your pain tolerance while working out, which is one of the nice thing with pre-workouts with caffeine. But it does also comes at risk in terms of high heart rate. So your heart rate is going through, the blood pressure is up, and then your inability to fall asleep afterwards.
We're talking about caffeine. What are your thoughts on Bulletproof coffee, where you add butter to your coffee to make your body metabolize the caffeine slower?
To be honest, I don't know enough about it, and I don't drink coffee. I don't like coffee, so it's never something I've actually tried. And I've never really looked much into it because I don't have a lot of athletes that drink coffee. I understand the effect of it because yes, you can have, just like sugar, coffee will give you a crash. And the idea here is that you don't necessarily have that crash, or the crash will come less acutely. It will be more a gradual crash or a decrease of the caffeine effect on you. So as it builds slowly, it's a source. So you're basically prolonging the life expectancy of the caffeine in your body, and it gives you a longer boost throughout the day. But you don't get the same spike either. A lot of people use caffeine because they want that spike of energy and focus right away. Whereas when you're doing that, you lose that spike. So it all depends on what you're looking for at the end of the day. But in terms of really its full efficiency, I've never really looked into it to know a lot about it.
Fair enough. The reason why I was asking is because I had a Bulletproof coffee this morning. So
Oh, yeah, no, I've never actually like really studied it. Like I never had one, I don't use it, and most of the athletes that I work with don't actually consume coffee, or if they do, they use it for that quick spike of energy and focus. Um, and usually they'll have like a cappuccino or something like that quick pour game, like I know a lot of guys will do, and that's the extent of it. So those guys want it right away because they use it for their sports, their game, not for the sake of just necessarily drinking coffee.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, and there's the habituated smoothies bags where if you mentioned if you use it every workout and you use it for every practice and every game, eventually you just need to take more and more of it because it has less of an effect on you. And then
and coffee is. Oh, for sure. And caffeine is one that you get so addictive so quickly, and your body adapts extremely quickly. So, and people don't realize is the consummation that you're going to get is the same. The effect won't be the same on your performances because you'll absolutely decrease. Because now your tolerance is a lot higher, but the effect on your ability to fall asleep is the exact same. So guess what? Now, if you need triple the amount because you've used it for so long, but guess what? That triple will also affect your ability to fall asleep. So now I give them some 300. So you'll see a lot of athletes, they'll consume so much caffeine on a game, and then post games they'll be up till like 4 or 5 in the morning, and now they have to sleep all day, just because they can't fall asleep with the fact that if you use so much caffeine. And now the cycle repeats itself. Now you're playing a back-to-back game. Guess what? You're going to take probably even more caffeine the next day just because you've been so tired, you're sleep deprived. And if you want to play at your best, you got to make sure you're high in energy. So now they'll probably have like a pre-workout for the game. They might sip on their second pre-workout throughout the entire game, if not even 2 scoops of pre-workout during the game just to maintain their energy level up. Or what's going to happen is they're going to be so accustomed to it, they're going to crash quicker, and now they're going to have to take more often scoops throughout the game. So guess what? Now your sleep is completely out of whack. Your recovery is not great. So you might feel good while you're under the effect of caffeine, but in reality, your ability to play just decreases. And in junior, especially guys going junior, like you'll have times in your schedule where you're going to play 3 and 4, or you're going to play 5 and 7, or just 4 and 7, like a lot of games. So if you're not sleeping well between on those days of recovery, guess what? You're not going to play well in that fourth game, and you're just going to crash. And if you're a goalie and you're number one, you want to play well every game. You want to be seen from the scouts, but you also want to make sure you keep your number one position. So those are things to keep in mind. So you got to be careful with that caffeine. And I know a lot of guys will do is they'll keep caffeine only for in season, and they're not going to touch caffeine at all in off season, so that when they go back, they just have that high efficiency. So the first time they take some, they just need to take a little bit to get the full effect of it. I know some guys will waive their caffeine throughout the week. So if you're really you find that you can't play without your pre-workout and so on, maybe just waive it out the week. But yes, be definitely careful. It's easy to get adapted to it, and the tolerance increases quickly.
Well, that's super interesting. I'm disappointed because I love coffee now. So now I feel bad for drinking it.
No, you're good. A lot of people will do actually. Yeah, a lot of people will do DKs. They'll drink coffee, but they'll get themselves off. Like they might go on, I can't remember what it's called, but there's types of mushrooms. There's types of plants that can mimic the exact same effect without being caffeine. So they'll go back and off, like they'll maybe do 1 week of coffee, 1 week of the other thing. So I'm just going to wave on and off. And I know for a lot of people, like it's also that, you're drinking coffee because it gives you that boost. No, it's almost like a routine. You need to have it to know you'll be good to go. I know same for the pre-workouts. A lot of guys, they need to drink something before they go in the gym. You could literally have them have a placebo where there's no caffeine and it would still feel the same as if they had caffeine. So it's like pattern ingrained in your brain. I need to drink this to be a ghost. It's part of your routine where you just know as soon as I have my coffee, I'm good to go for the day. So you could waive it without knowing that you haven't
decaf
coffee without any caffeine in it, and then caffeine free, and you'd be still feeling the same. So that placebo effect is there as well. So for some people, that's all they need to do is like have multiple, take the label off, don't know what it is, and change back and forth. Like sometimes you'll have some without any caffeine, you'll feel just as good as if you had caffeine, just because that placebo effect comes in there as well.
Okay, that's super interesting. I didn't know you could do that without with decaf coffee. So basically, just as long as the habit is there, you can potentially just switch it up and make it happen.
So be mindful. Be mindful.
In the mornings, actually.
Just be mindful that if you're going to do that, though, if you're aware that you're taking a different supplements or caffeine, in this case, like a no caffeine, if you know it might not work because you are aware, it's better if you're not aware, because now it becomes really that placebo effect where you're really not in the know. But that will definitely help greatly down the road. Like if you want to go, like, so like maybe make the two, take the labels off, don't tell one, and just go back and forth. You'll never truly know. And if you start noticing it, then because your coffee tolerance has really decreased, then you'll see it. But if your coffee tolerance is high, and take a decaffeinated and you just don't know, it will work. Actually, it's been proven a lot of times that placebo helps in that way to wean yourself off it.
I've actually tested it before. My wife's a nurse, and she one time she was working a night shift, and she was drinking a lot of coffee. She was actually complaining about it, how she was always on it, and then she asked me to make her coffee that for that night shift, and I gave her decaf without telling her, and she never noticed it actually. So yeah, there you go. There's an example of it working.
That's great, but yeah, it definitely works. And I tested on myself one summer too. I bought a pre-workout and I actually didn't realize it was stimulant free. And every time I used to work out, like I was working out 5 a.m, so I think just kind of kick in the butt to get me going. And for the entire month, I thought I was, or the entire month, but the entire times in that month that I used it, I thought I was actually getting stimulus. I wasn't getting anything, but my body reacted as if I was, just because I just read pre-workout, bought it, get it, and give me the same effect. So it's crazy how that placebo effect can be so beneficial on an athlete, in some ways, if it's well implemented.
That's interesting. The with now the off season being underway, what would you recommend to for goalies getting ready for next season? Like, was there a certain structure to the workouts you would say would be more beneficial for them, or does it again depend on the athlete specifically?
It depends on a few factors, but yes, there's probably a way to look at. The number one thing is, okay, and right now, like for any goalies going back to gym and trying to work out right now, coming out of this quarantine, haven't been doing anything, be mindful that you almost like start from scratch. That's number one. And it's the biggest challenge with this year and how things have been in terms of training, is every time you take those long breaks, you can't expect to go back to where you were. That's not how it works. You might feel great, doesn't mean you're going to be good, and that's when injuries occur. You might not feel it right away, but it leads to more injuries down the road, or imbalances that will cause chronic injury. So athletes, be mindful of that. If you are, like, I know a lot of my guys, and they're going to be upset, I know already, going into this, coming back from this restriction, we're going to take a step back. It's going to be the sad truth, but we have to take a step back. And I know a lot of you guys would be worried, but well, if we take a step back and we're only so many weeks away from spring camp, ID camp, or from like the next season. So, but those are the reality of things. There's ways to expedite the workout, but we need to go do it properly. So make sure you're mindful of that. If you're going to take a break or if you're coming out of restriction, you got to be careful. Don't go lift heavy right away. You got to build yourself. And the best way to go is always something. You always want to start what we call an anatomical adaptation, okay? So we're prepping your body to withstand the stress of the lift. And that's where we focus on fixing imbalances. The nice part with this year for the guys that haven't skated a lot is their body had time to fully recover. But that doesn't mean it's balance. We need to balance, especially in your hips. If you're a goaltender, we got to balance those hips out. So those are the things the guys got to look at. If they have a good strength coach, they will know about this. If they have a trainer, they might not know, because people understand trainers focus on one thing. It's it's on the muscle function. But muscle function doesn't mean they fully understand the physiology of it and the actual exercise physiology of hockey. So that's why look for a strength coach, not a personal trainer. And then make sure someone understands what you're going through and what it is required out of you as a goaltender. And a few little people actually understand. They can look at a goalie and say, oh, yeah, you need this, but they don't truly know until you know. So make sure you get someone who can help you out, rebalance your hips. If you're not sure, go see a physiotherapist. There's some good ones out there that are also certified strength coaches. And then from there, that's what you want to build progressively. So next thing, you want to start loading your body and gradually increase on the load until you get to the point where now you're going to shift your load and focus from size to strength to then power, then velocity, and then you're going to go towards your hockey peak before going into your in-season. And the goal people have to understand, you don't want to peak a week or two before you go into camp. You want to peak at camp. And that's the biggest issue. A lot of guys spend too much time focusing on their testing So they try to peak by the last week of their off season because that's when they get tested again by their strength coaches and so on for a lot of them. So now they go to camp, they're full depleted. Make sure you're peaking the right time, and that is at camp so that you're ready for the season. And if you want to make the team, don't peak too early. Again, having a good strength coach and waiving your stress and your adaptation recovery is crucial, because if you peak too early or you peak for camp, you're going to crumble at camp, and that's what we want. And that's when injuries happens, and that's when guys start seeing their performances decreases. And that's the last thing we want to see out of anyone. We want everybody to be successful. The reality is that not everybody can be successful or necessarily play what they want to play, but we want everybody to have a fair chance of having the best year possible.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off that and kind of go back to one thing you mentioned before when you said like you're FMS certified, so that's functional movement screening, I believe.
Yes, that's right.
In the future, or like in the next foreseeable future, you talk about peaking at camp. But a lot of times when you go to camp, teams have their fitness test, and their fitness test is like max bench press, max squat. They'll have some type of running test where they'll do a beef test. Do you see in the not too distant future a mobility screen being part of the fitness test, or maybe even being the major part of the fitness test to see like, if we're going to invest in this player, what are the chances that he's going to be injured in the first few months of the season? Do you see that making its way into mainstream fitness testing in the future?
Absolutely. If you look at the combined NHL already, they have implemented a few more things regarding that, such as the sit and reach and the leg extension, I think it's called the angle reach. Absolutely. A lot of teams will run those on their own too, because they want to. And I'm talking NHL teams. I don't think junior are quite there yet. There's still some junior teams, especially WHL, that don't necessarily have the right staff in place. And I'm not bashing on them. I just know for a fact that it's not quite there because they're still using the old school mentality. It's changing. I know a lot of good strength coaches are now moving up in those ranks. Junior A, come testing, a lot of time it's just administered by the scouts and the coaching staff. Not every junior team will necessarily have someone on staff. They might just have their athletic therapist. But yes, in Singapore, my 2 years at the University of Flatbridge, playing on the hockey team here before I transferred here, we had FMS testing required during our testing. One, because it gives our strength coach and our physiotherapist a chance to know, okay, these guys are at risk for this. This is what they're going to be worried of. It will not be a fail or pass. Maybe the NHL will use it. It will be kind of like a physical where, if you're doing this and you're failing this, you're not going to make the team because of this, but we need to make sure you're addressing this right away, so you don't end up blowing something out a month into the season, and now we're going to make a call up because you're injured. So definitely it's going to be implemented more and more. Even us at Evo, me being at Fest, I never tested. I just watch them move. That's all I need to see what their bounces are. But as of next year, we are doing full body assessment for all the hockey players, and I know it's something that the guys a lot of guys in Calgary are doing, a lot of groups in Calgary are doing already too. Into their assessment, we do it. We assess about every 3 weeks for us, so we do that. But yes, absolutely, we're going to see more and more as we go on, and you'll see some stuff change, like the beep test, for example, is so irrelevant to hockey. So you'll see more and more guys taking that out. It's really, at the end of the day, it's more about that mental strength, see if you can push through it, but it's not relevant in any way. And then, the bench press will probably going to stay in, but in reality, the bench press is useless for goalies as well. So maybe it will come down to like the NFL combined, where QBs don't have to do the bench press. Maybe goalies will be exempted as well, because I remember when I was in Swift Current, we had to do the bench press, and I want to say almost like 85% of the goalies there failed their weight at the bench press. But again, when are you ever going to bench someone out of your net? Never. So there's other things they could assess goalies on rather than focusing on the bench test. It's just the bench press has been such a kind of like a standard for all sports in terms of testing. We tested at Evo, but we tested for more than just the actual bench. We tested once because we want our guys to know where they're at regarding their junior camp. And second, it's an indicator to us to know, okay, this is how much force they have, so we know if they're progressing the right way or not. So it gives us some data to show to those athletes that they actually get to, or they are improving. But yes, expect a lot more FMS. be administered down the road. If not, just a full body assessment from physiotherapists on site. And those NHL players or sort of teams have so much money and the right support staff to do it anyways. And for them, it goes a long way. And that's the same thing too. People don't know, but having a good strength coach will know what to do with all those results. If they don't know, it's because they're not good enough for what your needs are. So make sure you get someone who knows what they're doing and are qualified and there to help you.
That's super interesting about the test, like moving over towards mobility, at least having more of a focus on mobility. Because was it you that was telling me that it was the NFL that was kind of ahead of the curve when it comes down to those things?
The NFL is ahead because they really, of anyone, especially with the pro days, but NFL is probably the one who has the most accuracy. It's also easier. You're gonna think NFL, they don't need ice; they need just a big field. So for them, it's a lot easier to test certain things. I think the bench is still irrelevant. Like unless you're like an O-line, D-line, where you got to really get to push in. The bench it's almost like I know it's like I don't know how to really put it. It's something to just give like a sense of confidence. Hey, these guys are beasts and they're strong. And it's just like a feel almost like a manly thing. Yeah, type of thing. So I don't think it's necessarily. You understand, like the combine's always probably going to be what they are. Where you're going to see different type of testing, such as FMS, it won't be necessarily in combines. It will be in teams' own testing because every NHL team now, or a lot of them, host their own combine. But all those guys run their own testing at training camp. That is, some of it will differ from the combine. That comes down to what the strength coaches want to see and what the physiotherapists want to see. Because at the end of the day, their job is to make you the best hockey player so they can win a Stanley Cup. So their testing is not really testing to see if you're in shape. Some teams will still, especially in junior, you'll look at it, okay, this guy's shows commitment. He came ready to camp. He's in great shape. Great. We got a good guy. But in the NHL, they want to see that, obviously. But they also want to see, hey, is this guy's committed really to play? Yes. Okay, cool. Now, is he failing this because he's not committed, or is he failing this because he's just 2 weeks? If he's 2 weeks, but he tried, we can get him stronger to make sure he's able to play at our level and win us games. So those are the things they're going to look at. So there's like multiple ways to look at it. On a strength coach's side, for us, we want to see it because we want to see what we have to work with. On the coach's side, they want to see it in an organization. They want to see it because, okay, they want to show dedication. If you are dedication to your career, you're going to put in the work on and off the ice, and you'll make sure you show up to camp ready. And you see it more and more, and goalies usually are really good at training camps. They usually may not be the strongest athletes, but they tend to do really well. And one example that comes back to mind a lot is Laurent Brossoit. When he was with the Oilers, they always talked about how great of a shape he came into camp. You see it now with Stuart Skinner did really well last year going to the Oilers camps. And I'm sure like if you talk around, you'll hear more and more from other guys. And that's one thing. Another one to actually come to mind, he's obviously, you guys will laugh because it's Fleury, but big idol. But Fleury is one of those guys always come to camp in really good shape. He might not be the strongest guy, but he's in incredibly good shape. And that's something you'll see a shift down the road is they want guys that are healthy, in good shape, not necessarily the strongest guy, but strong to within the relative strength of their body. And guys are going to actually really be able to withstand a full 82 season. They don't want guys that are like the strongest, biggest guys because guess what? If you're too heavy, it's physics. You're not going to move fast. They want guys that are fast. The game is so quick now. And if you look at Colorado, St. Louis, Randy, Colorado, one of the reasons they're dominating St. Louis is their speed. They're so much quicker than St. Louis. And that's what teams want. They want speed. And same thing applies for goalies. Like the game is so much faster every time you step up. And Benny, you can say like from your junior to your NCAA career, it's almost a world difference. It's insane how fast it is. When I made my jump from AAA to the Swift Current in the dub, I couldn't believe how quick it was. And you got to get faster. And on ice work will help, but you need the off ice as well. And your physiology will apply to that. So like they say, fat don't fly. If you carry too much weight or you're just too big, physics will dictate you can't move as quickly as another guy. So body mass, healthy body mass is crucial. So that's why they're going to look the combines and the testing. Maybe not combines, but the testing will definitely change because teams know what they want, and they're going to look for certain things such as how quickly can you skate, how powerful can you push. So power outputs, velocity will be a lot more greater than the actual like scale and your weight on the scale.
So we're just getting past about 80 minutes now. So Alex, is there any recommendations for online resources that people can look at that you like?
Online resources. It's to be honest, for goaltending, it's hard. There's not a lot on there. Just online, I would say maybe look for certain guys out there that are really good. But it all comes down to like what is it that you guys are looking for. So if the athletes need something, they got to look specifically for that. I don't think there's necessarily something online that I can think of right now. The best way I would say reach out to people like myself and ask questions. Some people are really busy; they might not be able to get back to you. I try to get back to everyone, even if it's not even necessarily a question for me. It's just somewhere to guide them towards something that they need. Mm-hmm. So those are maybe the thing to go for. Reach out to strength coaches and professionals in every direction. The worst case, no, you're just not going to get an answer out of it. But most likely a lot of guys are out there for the athletes and they want to help you out. So they will help you or at least guide you in the right direction. On top of my head right now, online stuff to look at, I can't really say there's any because it's too broad. It all depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for nutrition, if you're looking for sports and so on, there's a lot. And also problem now with the amount of influencers and people online just trying to make a quick buck, you lose the true quality. So I'd say do your homework. If you go online, just look around and seek out the professional help. Don't necessarily just look at things that you find or look at the first article you come across because a lot of it now is not as good as it may seem. Because you can have all the nice like whistle and like the nice flashy thing, but all the frill to go with it, it might not be good because it looks pretty. So we got to be careful. I just say, if you really reach out to the professionals, don't necessarily just look at what you find online because some resources is not ideal. And then if you have a background like myself in kinesiology, then obviously you may want to look at books or researches, but researches doesn't mean it's applicable directly to your sports if you don't understand what you're reading. So I'd say reach out to professionals like myself rather than just looking for some stuff on your own if you're not too sure, because it's easy to get lost in all the stuff you find and not everything is meant for you and everybody's different. So everything needs to be adapted directly to you.
Are there any podcast resources that you would recommend?
There's tons, but the problem is like the ones that I listen to are not necessarily for the general population. But if you look around, it's tough because it's all coming down to what you want to learn on. So if you want to learn nutrition and other stuff, you can look at that. If you're looking just for fitness, that you can look. So I would say do your homework. Again, that sense. But yeah, there's a few. If you look at anything from the NSCA podcast is really good. Mike Boyle podcast is really good. Perform Better is really good. The problem is that a lot of those are also really generic in a sense where they try to hit everything. It's not specific just hockey alone or training. To be honest with you guys, I've yet come across a podcast on just training for hockey or purely like applicable to hockey in every sense. I came across with basketball and football, but hockey hasn't been one that I came across yet, which is too bad. But that's definitely something lacking. Is that?
Get on it, dude.
Get on it?
Yeah, start it.
Yeah, maybe I should get so yeah, it's really that idea. But yeah, like I said, I haven't yet to come across that. But yeah, it's not that idea. But no, I can't say that I've came across anything in that regard at the moment. So if it comes to anything more specific, I can definitely like Dr. Bob's got a great podcast. Matt Nichols goes on a few things. Matt Nichols is well known for his stuff that he does, sort of training. And then you have Andrew O'Brien, who's Sidney Crosby. He's on a few podcasts. He doesn't have his own, but he's on a few podcasts. Those are all good podcasts, but again, because they try to reach such a broader group, they don't necessarily talk just about hockey or about certain things. They just talk training in general for hockey, and especially goalies. There's nothing out there for goalies. I'm sorry, guys. For all those listening to this, there's nothing for us. We're kind of left alone on a bit on our own this one.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, Ben, do you have any more questions for Alex?
No, that's pretty much all I wanted to ask. I mean, I got
Sweet.
way more answers than I had questions. So it's been a good hour and a half.
Same here, man. It was awesome having you on, man. Learned quite a lot actually, and I can't wait to actually re-listen to the whole stream just to make sure I absorb everything.
No, I think yes. It was nice doing this. I honestly, I hope I can do more for all goalies out there. I think this year's been a tough one for everyone, and everybody needs help more than ever at this point in terms of like proper training and getting ready for next season, because everybody knows next season is going to be big for everyone, especially all of you guys going from midget to junior and junior to trying to get to the pro. So I just want to wish best of luck to all the guys listening, and I can wait to talk to some of you that want to reach out to me. And I can't wait to see you guys in Calgary. Like I said, I just got my new gear in 2 weeks ago. It's been sitting
I saw that
at home because I can't do anything. Yeah, really excited. And finally, you guys will be approving of this. I got a 580 break glove this time, so no more blocker for me. I have an actual glove. So, yeah, I got to break this in, and I can't wait to see you guys in Calgary.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. So anybody that wants to get in touch with Alex or check out his website, it's evoathletics.ca. And then I believe you're under the same name on Instagram, right?
Actually, Instagram, it's evoathletics.ltd.
Okay.
And it's easier to reach out to me on Instagram. I have TikTok, Twitter as well, but Instagram is probably the best way to reach out to me. And where you'll see the most content out of me will be on Instagram as well.